People often argue that biology is destiny to suggest that the way that women and men are in our society is inevitable, unchangeable. The argument that it's all natural is a very powerful one, it's a very attractive one. And so it's an argument that can be used against people who are trying to change the position of women and men, and it's a very powerful argument, and I think it has to be challenged.
I've come into trade and I found men always saying, oh, it's weird for a woman to be a painter and decorator. And I always say to them, but who does the decorating in your house? Isn't your wife? And they say, yes, but I said, there's no question about it. Your wife does it. Oh, why can't you do it for a job? Oh, women have been capable of doing painting, decorating, building, carpentry, all the time.
Our society clearly defines what is male and female. Maureen Kerr crossed the line as an apprenticed painter and decorator.
What attracted me to the trade is meeting people, going places and doing something I like. I don't feel less of a woman, I still feel like a woman. The men treat me like a woman, and when I go on my clean-up and when I go out on the road, people just think I'm a normal secretary or something in a woman's line, when all the time I'm a painter and decorator. Well, I think the men feel like we're conquering them, we're overtaking them. They get the impression that they'll soon be the housewife or the houseman. But I suppose they'll come to realise that the women did it in the war, so why can't they blend in now again? I think other male painters like me in the trade, but I don't really know their personal opinion. But I'm sure most of them like me in the trade. But there's always the other doubting Thomas. There's always someone that don't want you in it.
What does her fellow apprentice Dave Cousins think?
Well, I've been working on and off with Maureen for about 18 months, and what I've seen so far, I think she's coping very well, really.
The sort of criticisms I get are, what are you doing in this trade? Why don't you be a housewife or a secretary or a nurse like your mother? And I just say, no, I'm quite happy in this trade, I'm going to stay in it. Most people I've worked with, they've accepted me, but there's always the odd one that doesn't. And that's the one I've got to fight against. And it's mainly because of them why I'm staying more in the trade than anything. Because you've got to prove to these stubborn people that women can do just as well as them.
This film looks at some myths about women's capabilities which restrict them in every aspect of their lives. First, women aren't suited to heavy manual work. Mary Shields works for the GLC.
I decided to become a carpenter for lots of different reasons. The pay is good pay. It's outdoors, you're not stuck in an office. You're your own boss, and I want to do something that was skilled. I'm the only woman that I know of working for the GLC housing department on the tools. There's about 6,000 employees when I was taken on, and I was the only woman then. And 2 years later, I'm still the only woman. I love the job, yeah. I think it's very important that women take up these kind of jobs, because it's very important that women get into skilled jobs where there's good pay, because I think that in itself will probably change men's attitudes to women. There's very mixed reactions from the men that I've worked with. Some of them don't want to know because they feel very awkward about how to treat me. They keep saying, you're one of the boys now, and I keep saying, no, I'm not, you know. And I think they find that very difficult. I think with the blokes that I've got to know, they do respect me for who I am. The others, they respect me for my work.
And what do the GLC tenants think when Mary turns up to mend their woodwork?
Well, almost all the tenants have been really pleased to see a woman on the job.
If a woman can do a job, I don't see why not. Well, I'd like to do electrical work. I mean, I think I'll be good at it. Well, I've got children and I haven't the opportunity to go to work until they're a bit older.
Like electrical work, carpentry is strenuous. What does Mary feel about the physical demands?
I seem to think carpentry's like weightlifting. It isn't weightlifting, it's a skilled trade, you know. It's a matter of skill. You've got to learn how to move, you've got to learn how to pivot large objects and large pieces of timber. On top of that, there's electric tools, electric saws and that. which make the work very much lighter.
Girls choose apprenticeships in traditional jobs like hairdressing. Why don't more of them do this kind of work?
I know that girls are put off going into the trades because they don't think it's feminine, because they don't see how women can get dirty and still stay women, and they're worried about their image with their boyfriends.
Why does approval matter to girls so much?
Women want sexual approval because sexual approval means money in the bank. Like for most women, it's true that your face is your fortune. Your body is your fortune, and the reason for that is that you're going to get your income largely through the bloke you marry. I mean, a woman doesn't want to do a job that's going to put a man off. I think the important thing for people to do is to start looking at each other as individuals with a certain gifts and potential. It's a very old-fashioned idea, actually.
Often jobs which women do at home are a male preserve outside. The only woman GLC porter works on this estate, and she surprised them by applying. Nikki McCarthy.
I applied to the GLC for the job. First of all, my husband is a caretaker, and I felt that I could do the job just as well as he does it. Well, I don't think they quite believed that I was applying for the job. I felt I wanted to do something different. I was getting no job satisfaction out of nursing. Of course, it's a little bit harder, but I find it quite easy.
If women develop their physical strength, they can often do jobs requiring quite a lot of physical effort. It's also often forgotten that women with young children often need a lot of physical strength. They have to carry children, carry shopping. Women who work as, say, night cleaners also have to do a lot of very strenuous work. So although it's probably true that on average men are stronger than women, I think there are very few jobs that require the sort of physical strength that women would just not have.
Dr. Esther Saraga teaches psychology at Chelsea College, London, and has made a special study of sex differences. What does she feel about women's intellectual capabilities in, for example, science?
It's often said that women are more illogical and unscientific than men, and they're not capable of doing science and so on. I think there's no biological evidence at all to support that sort of argument. If we look at the numbers of women scientists, and obviously far fewer women are scientists than the numbers of men who are scientists, but we can't relate this directly to, say, spatial ability, which is what the biological determinists try to do, because there's such an overlap in ability between women and men.
So other factors influence whether women take up science. 3 women scientists have won a Nobel Prize since Madame Curie. One of them, who also brought up a family, is chemist Professor Dorothy Hodgkin.
I had no difficulties at all in taking up a scientific career. Actually, my education was a little unusual because my father and mother were abroad most of the time, and we children went to the local school at Beccles, Suffolk, and when they came home from time to time, they were happy to find us with different interests, and my father and mother encouraged my taking up science, and particularly my mother. In fact, she would rather have liked to have done this herself. In the school that I was, the only science taught was chemistry, and I became fond of chemistry right from the beginning. Halfway through the school, it was customary for most of the girls to split off from the boys and do domestic science, but by that time my course was set so that the 2 girls of my year both did chemistry with the boys. I don't know quite what the present position is about science training in the schools, but I do still get the impression that there is much more in boys' schools than in girls' schools, so that considerable improvements are possible. The reason why there are so many women scientists in other countries supports my view that the numbers depend upon the general climate of opinion and atmosphere of encouragement in the society as a whole. I am quite sure that part-time jobs with full academic status would be very helpful over the time when the children are young. It is very difficult really to do everything during that period that one would like to do. And I do think that many young women scientists want to and need to and should go on working and have the rest of their lives made easier for them.
Dr. Anne Cook combines career and family. She's a biochemist at the Middlesex Hospital in London.
One of the reasons why I decided to come back to work is that my work means a lot to me. I'm very much involved in it. And I think I felt that if I didn't carry on with my work, I might subsequently regret not carrying on, because in the kind of work that I do, if you have a break in your career, it's very difficult to get back into the field because it's highly competitive. You have to publish, you have to have so many publications a year. If you don't have that publication rate, then you won't get a job. I worked until the week that the baby was born, and then I had my 3 months maternity leave. It was quite difficult because there was no nursery at my place of work. I had to look around and find a day nursery which he could possibly go to. There are many factors actually which would make it easier for women to become equal in any field. I mean, obviously for me one of the main things has been the problems associated with having my child looked after when I decided to come back to work and continue working. I think it would be much better for women if there were many more daycare facilities available for children.
It's difficult for women to stay in science, but why don't more girls take it up?
I think one of the things that influence whether or not a girl takes up science is to do with how she sees science. If you see science as something which is not feminine to do, then you won't go on and do it. I certainly feel that women are equal to men in science, in terms of scientific power, intellectual power. And I think a lot of women lack confidence. The way that a woman sees herself, I think, is probably one of the most important things she needs to be liberated from. I think she needs to realise that she's all right, that she can do things, that she is capable, that she does have a brain, she can do anything she wants to do. I do feel men's attitude should change, yes. I think that men's attitude should change in ways in which they should realise that women should be given equal opportunities to do things.
Anne Cook can only pursue her career because her husband, Jonathan, also a scientist, regards it as equal to his own and shares the work at home.
Yes, I do share quite a lot in looking after Sam. I wouldn't say it was completely 50-50. I wouldn't say that I did as much as half of it. And sometimes we have quite long discussions about how we ought to be really working harder to move towards making it 50-50.
Is Jonathan glad that he does look after Sam?
There are rewards which I think that fathers who take a very traditional role will miss in the early years of a child's life by taking that role. But the things that are hard, if you're very career orientated, I find myself in what feels like competition situations with other men in my job whose wives' own needs don't require that they should do this.
Parents act as models for their children, and women who've had working mothers are more likely to have careers.
My mother worked all the time that I was young and my brothers were young. And my grandmother worked, so that I haven't actually, at some level, had those kinds of models around, which was the mother always stayed at home. I think, to be quite honest, sometimes my husband found it difficult because his mother had always been at home.
So social factors influence women's intellectual achievement. The next myth concerns their psychology, that women can't take responsibility because they're too emotional.
A lot of people will argue, perhaps particularly men will argue, that women can't be in a position of responsibility over men. There's no particular reasons for this. I think it's just a question of attitudes and prejudice, though the attitudes and prejudice may sometimes be shared by women as well. And I think one just has to look at those situations where it's worked very successfully for women to demonstrate that they are quite capable of responsibility, as in many cases women are already doing.
In this engineering firm in Sheffield, the trade union convener of the Transport and General Workers Union, with a mainly male membership and an all-male shop stewards committee, is Sylvia Greenwood. What does this involve?
Well, my position as a convener obviously covers a lot more than just a shop steward. I negotiate for a full factory. I'm responsible to a shop stewards committee of about 15, plus 6 600 people. And so the authority I wield would say, yes, when I speak on behalf of a thing, I'm speaking on behalf of 600 and not as an individual. But I'm always accountable back to the membership. You can be dealing with a number of things. It could be a dispute among workers, it could be a dispute over money, it could be a safety problem, it could be a welfare problem. I could deal with a number of things in one day, in different varieties.
Yeah, okay. What's the matter then?
Well, he's not paid enough for special. He thinks he should be paid more. I've been through all procedure, but it's still the same. I can't get any satisfaction from them at all.
And does Sylvia go about her job emotionally?
I don't think that industrial action is something that should be taken lightly, because being a woman, I realise that industrial action means hardship on a family. I am not more emotional than men, and it's nothing whatsoever to do with my hormones, but probably because I have a lot more feeling, having experienced poverty myself, realising what people can go through.
Have you done aught about it, Kate?
Well, I've been in to see him, but I can't get no satisfaction out of it.
It's a World Study problem then.
Yeah.
Well, I'll check with World Study and find out what's happening. It's definitely not enough. Leave it with me, Barry, and I'll get it seen to.
Righto, thank you.
I feel I do quite an efficient job representing men as well as women. I feel I've just got as much ability as any man to do the job. But second, I feel that I've got to know 10 times more than any male. And so that probably gives me a better opportunity representing them.
Does Sylvia's male membership feel satisfied with her leadership and know-how?
Yes, she's very clever, yes. She's got to know all aspects of the union work, which she does, and can give a good argument and listen to a good argument.
Well, when she first came, I was a bit dubious, you know, a woman convener. I'd never heard of one before. But up to now, she's really proved that she can do the job and stand up to the pressures that are put on her.
People have asked me on many occasions whether I've been frightened of going to see management. I'm frightened of no one. I believe I've as much right to say what I've got, what I think, as anybody else. It doesn't matter what station in life you hold.
Right. Now, Sylvia, what's the problem? Right, John's come down to...
I would see management over bonus problem, over redeployment of labour, production, general disagreement problems, safety problems.
The people to me, the most concerned about this group scheme.
If you're negotiating, you're able to express your membership's point of view to management a lot easier without being too emotional.
What do you think to that, John?
And this way, management begins to see your point of view.
But over the last 3 or 4 weeks, the bonus earnings have dropped dramatically.
I don't believe there's any psychological difference between a man and a woman. In fact, sometimes I feel I'm better than most males.
In a group scheme, it depends on group effort, and all workers don't work the same. So
I do a job and I do it effectively. I am not frightened of losing my job. I am not frightened of saying what I feel is right.
Thank you.
As well as management, Sylvia has to work with her shop stewards committee.
Well, us in this company use the minimum time rate as basic pay. My shop stewards committee, obviously, being all male, would create, one would think, a problem. But I don't find this, in fact. I think it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. It's if you know what you're talking about, and if they've got confidence in you. And if they've got confidence in you, you can do any job. But you must have confidence in yourself too, because that's important.
Well, how's this going to affect us?
Well, point is, women tend to lack confidence to take up being a shop steward. Well, they have problems at home that don't give them the time to take up to be a shop steward. As much as you try, you're just elected from shop floor, but you do need training in order to do a decent job. And training takes time. Thanks very much. Let me know what you think about it. The trade union in itself has always been a difficult area for a woman for the simple reason it's always been run by males. There's one thing that men think they are, is an authority on women workers. But by God, you mustn't be an authority on men workers. That is not allowed. Prejudice does exist within the union. We're hoping to break it down, but it's a very, very slow process.
Women will not win equal opportunities until they're active within their unions, but male attitudes often prevent this.
I'm able to be active, but my husband wouldn't agree with it, you know, he's a bit old-fashioned in his ideas. Well, he believes them sort of things, politics and unions left to men, you know, he's old-fashioned in his, you know, he's terrible.
I think one of the most important things for women to start taking equal opportunity in the unions and at work would be if childcare was brought more into the forefront. Meetings are held at night, so that means if she's been out at work all day, she's got to leave her children again at night to go. I believe that meetings should be held through the day, and in fact in my own branch, where I have a branch meeting, my meetings are held in the dinner time so that my women can come along. And that's purely because I'm a woman and I understand the problems.
Sylvia had 2 children when she studied to be a convener, and she went through a divorce. She now has joint custody of the children and the help of her second husband.
Cabbage on yours, Sylvia.
Yes, thanks, that's fine. When I get home, obviously, and Noel, who isn't working at the moment, has done so much of the cooking part. I then go into the kitchen and help him finish off. We do share the work because of the, obviously, the workload. I don't believe he should be any more tied to the kitchen than I should.
Well, there's no complaints about that part.
No, I know, you made it. I find I'm in a situation where my work doesn't end at 4:25. I then find myself in a position, because there's so few women, that I'm answering all kinds of calls for help. Things like industrial tribunals.
Papers, love, for you to have a look at. To see which way
And people who want advice on accidents that don't even belong to my branch. And I feel that everybody should be able to pick up a phone and somebody should be able to help. And I've never turned anybody away yet, but it does become rather tiring. I think that women are just as equal as men. The problem is, right from the day we're born, we're told or shown what we should do. Probably we're guilty as parents.
What do you think about dolls?
I think they're loud and rubbish.
What a little boy's made out of, what a little boy's made out of, pigs and snails and puppy dog tails, and that's what they're made out of.
What a little girl's made out of, what a little girl's made out of, sugar and spice and everything nice, and that's what they're made out of.
I think it's virtually impossible to say whether any of the differences between men and women or between girls and boys are inevitable from a biological point of view. I mean, obviously there are obvious physical differences between women and men. Women can give birth and men can't give birth, and that's a difference. But beyond those physical differences, it's impossible to say. Gender identity develops very rapidly in children. They learn from a very early age which sex they are and which gender they've been assigned to, whether they're a boy or a girl. Biological factors may influence the development, but from the beginning those biological factors interact with social influences. In our society, women are largely defined as wives and mothers, and I would say particularly as mothers, defined around their capacity to give birth. In contrast, that men are defined very much as the breadwinner. They're expected to support and protect the family. Women who are very feminine in the way that society expects them to be often have a low sense of what's called self-esteem. That is, they feel inadequate, they don't think very highly of themselves, and so on. The expectations about the way women should behave are particularly damaging to women because they tend to be such negative ones. A very large number of women suffer from depression or other sorts of psychological problems. And I think this can be seen to be very related to aspects of femininity that they're expected to achieve. People feel that the way that things are in society is the way that they always have been, the way that they always will be. And I think if women are going to change that position and have greater equality, then we have to challenge the argument that these sex differences are inevitable and can't be changed.
Phase 1 was your £6. Phase 2 was a maximum of £4.